When people see me, they see a survivor. And they're not wrong, but they're not entirely right either. Surviving was just, the starting line. The first step on a journey. A journey that I couldn't even imagine. The raw, gritty day in, day out business of just trying to get by. But surviving isn't the whole story. It's not even the best part. Let me show you what it really means to thrive. Before we get into it, I have to confess something. For the longest time, I hated the word survivor. It felt like a heavy label someone else slapped on my chest. It was a constant reminder of, you know, what I'd lost and a story that felt like it began and ended with trauma. People meant well, of course. They saw strength. But all I felt was the fight. The daily exhausting fight to just exist in a world that suddenly felt like it was built for someone else. And the truth is, you can't build a future when you're constantly trying to outrun the past. And at that moment in my life, it really began. It was the moment I decided I was really done with just surviving. The first few moments of my amputation are a blur, a haze of pain, medication, and feeling completely disconnected from reality in my own life. It's a strange thing grieving a part of yourself while the world is just keeps spinning. Life doesn't wait, it just demands you to adjust. You have to relearn everything from the simple act of balancing just to get through the doorway. It felt like my whole life had been boiled down to just a list of problems to solve. My entire world was physical: wound care, physical therapy, and managing phantom pain. Which, by the way, is one of the things they never tell you about. One of the most bizarre, unsettling things that you have to go through and start understanding. Your brain is absolutely screaming that your limb is there, but it doesn't exist. And then the fight in your head is exhausting on its own, but during that time I wasn't living, I was just operating. My emotional state was shoved on a back burner, a luxury I felt I couldn't afford. I was bouncing between denial and anger, and sometimes in the same hour. I'd catch reflection myself and I feel like I was looking at a stranger. My body image was completely shattered and my confidence went right along with it. I felt like I was defined by what I was missing. My friends and family were amazing, but there's a special kind of loneliness that comes with experience like this. Feeling that nobody can truly get what's going on inside your head. So yeah, I was a survivor. I survived the surgery, the chemotherapy, but I was surviving in the most literal sense of the word. I was alive, but I sure as hell wasn't living. Every day was about making it to the next. The future wasn't hopeful. It was just a long, terrifying road of limitations. That was the survivor phase, just holding on for dear life. The shift wasn't some big cinematic moment. It was more like a slow sunrise. It all started with the question that grew from a whisper to a roar in my head. For months, my internal monologue was just a constant loop of I can't do this anymore. I can't go there. I can't do this. I can't play with them. I'll never be able to do that again. The mindset of loss and of lack. The turning point was the day I just got sick of the sound in my head of the voice saying, I can't. I can't. I was in my room just trying to do something ridiculously simple. I don't even remember what. I was failing for the 10th time. I felt the familiar wave of frustration and self-pity wash all over me. But this time was something else was there. A tiny flicker of defiance. The question that popped into my head wasn't, why can't I do this? It was, okay, how can I do this in a different way? It sounds almost silly how simple it is, but changing one little word from can't to how was the key that unlocked everything. It was a mental shift from feeling like a victim to taking back control. It was the moment I started seeing my new reality as not as a dead end, but as a problem to be solved. A creative challenge, even. That question forced me to engage with my life instead of just reacting. It sparked curiosity, and I could only use How could he use something differently in a new angle? How can he invent a new way to do something from scratch? I didn't know it at the time, but it's what experts call cognitive flexibility, teaching your brain to adapt and reframe challenges. The first step of just accepting my new reality to actually building resilience within it. I started to see my crutches and prosthetic not just as a reminder of my loss, but as a tool, a piece of tech I could master. It was the beginning of rebuilding my identity, not as a person who's lost his leg, but a person who's figuring out how to conquer the world in new terms. It was the ending of surviving and the first day of thriving. I know I'm not the only one. Maybe it wasn't an amputation for you, but we all had moments that brought us to our knees, where just surviving felt like Mount Everest. If you're ever having a turning point like that, a moment you decide to ask how instead of can't, I would be honored for you to share that piece of your story in the comments. Your story actually truly matters. Thriving wasn't a magic switch. It was built brick by brick with intentional choices. After that mental shift, I had to create a framework to support it. The first piece was setting goals I could actually achieve. I'm not talking huge or scary goals. I'm talking about celebrating millions of tiny victories. One day the goal will be like walking down the hall. The next day will be like getting something off the counter that I won without asking for help. And when I did it, I'd celebrate it like I won a marathon. No one realized that, but I did it in my head. Another day would be like trying to learn how to climb stairs again without falling over. Each little win built my confidence and gave me proof that I was moving forward and it was completely possible. The second piece was building a routine. Routine gives you an anchor when your world feels chaotic. I made sure I included something physical, something creative, and something social. The physical part was my rehab, my physical therapy, which I started to think of more as training. It's just training my body to be able to get stronger in a different way. The creative part was discovering new hobbies or training old ones in different ways. The social part was pushing myself to connect with people, especially with the days when I just didn't want to talk to anyone at all. Which leads to the third, maybe the most important piece, people. My friends and family are my rock, but the real game changer was connecting with other amputees. Finding a peer support group was like finding Rosetta Stone for my own life. Suddenly I was talking to people who just got it. They understood the dark humor, the specific frustrations, the weirdly specific triumphs. That connection destroyed the loneliness I've been carrying. And it wasn't just about complaining together, it was about learning. Seeing people who were 10, 20 years, older than me with an amputation, living these full, vibrant lives, working, raising families, running marathons, skiing, hiking. It really showed me it was possible and gave me a roadmap. And finally, I had to completely change the relationship with my own body. This was huge. Instead of obsessing over the scar and the absence, I started focusing on what my body could still do. I started seeing my crutches as incredible piece of stabilization, and that was giving me my independence back. I slowly started to embrace this new version of me and realized that every scar tells you a story of resilience. My identity hasn't been erased, it's been forged in fire. There's this myth that after trauma, the goal is get back to normal, to become the person you were before. And I've learned that not just impossible, but there's not even a point to try. That person is gone, and that's okay. The journey from survivor to thriver isn't about recovery, it's about discovery. You don't get your old life back, you build a new one. You find out who you actually are. My identity now isn't defined by my amputation, but it's absolutely shaped by it. It's a core part of my story, not some tragic footnote. This whole experience has given me a depth of empathy I never had before. and it's given me a resilience I know is unbreakable. It's forced me to be more creative, more patient, and more grateful. And I wouldn't trade those qualities for anything. I'm a person who experienced limb loss, and through that, became stronger and more adaptable. And it turns out this kind of growth after trauma is real. It's a documented thing. My life is fuller now, not in spite of what happened, but because of it. I'm not a passive victim of circumstance anymore. I'm an active architect of my own joy. This doesn't mean I ignore pain or pretend the bad days don't happen, because they do. But now they're just that, days. They're not my entire existence. Thriving means understanding you aren't defined by what you lost. You're defined by the courage you use to build what's next. The path from surviving to thriving isn't a straight line. It's messy. You'll step backwards, you'll step forwards. You'll step every different angle. And it's different for every person. But it's always been possible. It starts when you decide to stop being a passenger in your own recovery and grab the steering wheel. It's about giving yourself permission to not just heal, but to grow. To not just get through it, but to flourish. My hope in sharing all this is that if you're in a dark place, you feel like you're defined by your struggle, you know that there's a way forward. It's a path of self-compassion, tiny victories, and finding your how. You're such more than what has happened to you, and your story is of resilience. It's just one that's being written. And if this story resonated with you, or if you're on a similar journey, I hope you stick around and subscribe. We're a community here, and we're all just figuring it out together. Thanks for watching.